part 2 of restoring my Honda CRF 450. So, for any bike that's been left for a long period of time, one of the most important things that you need to check over is the braking system. This was all fine when I parked it up, but obviously it's been sat for over 2 years, so there's certain checks I need to go through, a few different bits and bobs. So let's take you through the process of what I do. So here I'm starting on the back brake. I'm just stripping it down to get the caliper off the bike. I use a lot of back brake on a supermoto. A lot of people think that when you slide or back it into a corner you're actually skidding. You're not, you're just sort of giving the back brake a bit of a rub to get it, initiate that slide of going into the corner. What you want to do is slow the rear wheel down more than the front wheel, but not actually lock it up, because you will crash then. But here I've got the pads out. They're in pretty good condition. I don't need to replace them. I'm just going to clean them up. The actual sliders for the caliper as well, they're a bit dirty. I'll get them cleaned up. I'm not very good at holding the camera in one hand and trying to get what I'm looking at on the other side, but I'll get a bit better at that. So yeah, on a rear caliper you've got a piston on one side and then the caliper slides over. So I've cleaned all the caliper pins up there, cleaned the caliper itself, and the piston where it pushes out. So I'm just building it back up there now. I've just used brake cleaner on there, and I've used a lithium grease on the caliper slider bolts itself. And then I've just used a little bit of copper slip on the pads, just on the back of the pads, and a bit of copper slip on the actual pin that holds the pads in. They sort of slide on that pin as well, so best to make sure everything's free. Give your hands a wipe, make sure you're not getting any grease on the disc or the pads or anything like that. A little bit tricky to get back in. The rear pad wanted to drop out of there, but we get there in the end. So the next job after this, just carrying on the rear, I'm going to change the brake fluid. So brake fluid that you've got in your brake system is what's called hygroscopic, and that means it absorbs moisture from the atmosphere. So basically what that does is, as the brake fluid absorbs moisture, it lowers the boiling point of the fluid that's inside there. So obviously, because it's been in there for so long, I need to change it, and I'm going to change it for some performance brake fluid, because obviously on the track you're going to generate a lot more heat than you would do riding it on the road. Just a point there, when you've worked on the brakes, make sure you pump the pedal to make sure the pads are pushed all the way out. I'm going to give you a bit of a pro tip here. So I'm using this Silcoline brake fluid, but when you open a sealed container like this, you've got the foil on the top. If you use something like I've got here, a spanner, and put a hole at one side and then a hole at the other side, one hole will let air go in and one hole will let fluid come out, so it's much easier to direct it where you need it to go on the actual bike. So there, I'm just going through a bleed of the brake. I try and get quite a lot of fluid through just to make sure that it's completely bled with new fluid. So onto the front, similar job. I'm going to take the pads out, clean up all the pistons. A little bit different on the front because it doesn't have sliders. It's got 6 pistons, so 3 pistons on either side. So just give them a clean up, and again make sure that the brake's pumped up. So another tip, if you've got a remote reservoir like I have, if you mount it on a spring like that, if you do come off, it'll just come to the side and won't snap off as if you've got it on a solid mount. So I'm just opening the reservoir now, and what I'm going to do is empty the fluid that's in the reservoir out and fill it up with fresh fluid, so that when I start bleeding it, straight away I've got new fluid going through into the brake system. And you'll see when I do the bleed itself, I fill and empty the reservoir at least 5 or 6 times, just to completely make sure that I've flushed out all the old brake fluid out of the system and got it renewed with the brand new stuff. Because obviously once it's brand new, you're going to get the boiling point back up to where it should be. It will have lowered quite a lot over the years that it's been sat in there. So get that bled up, make sure it's nice and solid, top it up to the maximum level and get the cap back on again. So last little bit, couple of dust caps on the covers, make sure they don't get full of shit when you're riding around. Next step is I'm going to show you how to strip and clean a carb and put a new seal kit on there. So yeah, we'll see you for part 3. Hopefully we'll get it started up. Thank you.